welcome back to our equations unit. Today we're going to be starting with two-step equations, so let's go ahead and take a look at some key ideas. So we have three steps when it comes to solving our two-step equations. Our first step is we're going to draw a wall through our equal sign. Then we're going to eliminate the constant by using inverse operations. And in inverse operations, you get rid of a constant or to either add or subtract. Then we're going to eliminate the coefficient by using inverse operations. And our inverse operations for the coefficient are either going to be multiplication or division. So let's see this put into practice right now with example A. So here we are at example A, and it says 2x minus 5 equals 11. So we're going to apply our three steps. Our first step is to draw a wall down from the equal sign, so we're going to do that now. Then we're going to eliminate the constant. So the constant is the number without the variable. In this case, it's negative 5. So we're going to be using our inverse operations. The inverse of minus is plus. So we're going to add 5 to both sides of our equation, because whatever we do to one side of our equation, we must do to the other in order to make them balance. We're going to draw a line separating that step. Negative 5 and positive 5 are going to cancel out, leaving us just 2x on that side of the equation. 11 plus 5 is 16. Again, if you don't know that, make sure to use your calculator. Our next step is to eliminate the coefficient, and to do that, we're going to do the inverse operation. Since I have 2 next to the x, I know it's 2 times x, so the inverse operation of that is to divide. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1, or 1x, and 16 divided by 2 is 8. So now let's go ahead and check it. Let's see if we did it correctly. So we're going to plug in 8, what we got for x. We're going to substitute it in. So 2 parentheses 8 minus 5, does that equal 11? Let's find out. So 2 times 8 is 16. 16 minus 5 is equal to 11. 16 minus 5 is 11, so does 11 equal 11? Yes, then I know that it checks, and I did it correctly. So my final answer for that one is x equals 8. Let's go ahead and take a look at example B. Here we are at example B, and this time again, I've got an equal sign, and I've got a two-step equation. I'm going to follow the same rules that I followed before. I'm going to start by drawing the equal sign, or a line down from my equal sign. Step 1 is to get rid of my constant. My constant in this case is positive 4, since that's the one not near the variable. So I'm going to subtract 4 on both sides of my equation. Draw a line to separate my step. Positive 4 and negative 4 cancel each other out. Bring down the negative 2.4n, because I didn't do anything with that. 2.8 minus 4 is going to give me negative 1.2. So now I have just a one-step equation, and I've got to get rid of my coefficient. I've got multiplication there, so the inverse operation of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2.4. When I do that, negative 2.4 divided by negative 2.4 is 1, or 1n. And then negative 1.2 divided by negative 2.4, I can use my calculator for that, and when I do, I get 0.5. So now let's check it to see if we did it correctly. We're going to substitute it back into our problem and see if that we got it correct. So 2.8 is equal to negative 2.4 times, in this case, 0.05 plus 4. We're going to run our order of operations. So 2.4 negative times 0.5 is going to give us negative 1.2. So negative 1.2. Plus 4, and negative 1.2 plus 4 is 2.8. So 2.8 equals 2.8. Yes, it does. So I know that I've done it correctly, and my final answer is n equals 0.5. Now let's take a look at example C. Here we are in example C, and again, I'm going to be drawing my wall down from my equal sign to start. Now I have to figure out which one is my constant. It looks like it's the 2, since that's the one away from the variable. So I'm going to be subtracting 2 on both sides of my equation to start. 2 minus 2 is 0. Now I need to make sure that I bring down both the negative and the 3y. It's very important that I remember to take that sign that is in front of that 3 down to the next level. That doesn't go away just because I got rid of the 2 in front of it. That negative sign has to drop to the next level, just like the rest of the problem. Negative 3y is equal to negative 31 minus 2. It's going to give me negative 33. Now I have a one-step equation. I need to figure out what the inverse operation of multiplication is. It's division. So I'm going to be dividing both sides by -3 because I want to get rid of both the 3 and the negative. So a -3 divided by a -3 is going to give me a +1y. If I only divided by the +3, I would end up with -y. And I'm not looking for -y, I'm looking for y. So I have to divide both sides by -3. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, or +1y as we just talked about. And -33 divided by -3, and negative divided by a negative is a positive. If you're not sure, make sure you use your calculator for integer rules, and you end up with 11. So y is equal to 11. You can check this if you'd like. We've talked about checking before. We don't have to do it for every problem that we don't want to, but if you would like to check your answers, you're more than welcome to by substituting it in and making sure you got the answer correct. Now let's take a look at example D. Here we are in example D. Again, I'm going to start by drawing my line down by my equal sign. Now I've got to figure out which one is my constant, which one is my coefficient. I see -13 there. It's not with the variable. It's not being multiplied or divided by the variable, so it is not a coefficient. It is a constant. So the opposite of -13, I'm going to add 13 to both sides. When I do that, -13 and +13 are going to cancel out. Again, it's very important for me that I have to grab this negative sign. I can't just make it disappear. So -x is left on one side of the equation. 9 plus 13 is going to be 22. So now I have -x equals 22. But I'm not looking for -x. I'm looking for x. So I have to get rid of that negative sign. So the only way to get rid of that negative sign is I have to figure out what the coefficient is and do the inverse operation. Since I don't see any other number there other than the negative, I know this is -1x. So in order to get rid of that -1 times x, I have to do the inverse operation, which is division. So I have to divide both sides by -1. -1 divided by -1 is +1, or +1x. And 22 divided by -1 is going to be -22. So my final answer is x equals -22. Now let's have you try some practice problems on your own. Here we are at practice problems number 1 and 2. I want you to try these both on your own. See that you can do the best that you can. So I want you to pause the video now, complete the problems the best that you can, then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Were you able to get both answers that I got? Notice on one side I left my answer as an improper fraction, 6/5. If you turned it to a decimal, that would be okay. If you did, you would have gotten 1.2 equals x. Now, since the problem did not tell you whether to write your answer as a fraction or a decimal, both would be acceptable, but it's a very, very good idea to get in the habit of writing your answer as an improper fraction. On the right-hand side, hopefully you got x equals -8. If you didn't get any of the answers that I got, go back and check your work to see where you may have made your mistake. Otherwise, let's move on to the next example. Here we are at example E. It says which value makes W true? So we're going to be solving. We're missing an equal sign there. It should be 13 is equal to 1 minus W6. So now we're going to draw a line down from our newly created equal sign. Now I need to figure out which one is the constant. I've got 6, I've got 1. Since the 6 is dividing the W, I know that that's going to be my coefficient, so my constant is +1. So to get rid of +1, I'm going to be subtracting 1 on both sides. 1 minus 1 is going to cancel out and leave me with -W6. Again, make sure that it's very, very important that you bring down this negative sign. And on the other side of my equation, 13 minus 1 is going to equal 12. Now I need to get rid of that W divides -6. So I'm going to be doing the opposite, or the inverse operation. The inverse operation of division is multiplication. So I'm going to be multiplying both sides by -6. Again, remember, it's important that we want to get rid of both the 6 and the negative. We want W to be just by itself. So we're going to multiply both sides by -6. When we do that, -6 times -6 is going to be canceling out, so that we're going to be getting W, and -6 times 12 is -72. And that's our final answer. Now let's look at example F. Here we are at example F, and it says x divided by 2 minus 3 equals negative 11. So again, we're going to be drawing our line down from our equal sign. We got to figure out which one is our constant, which one is our coefficient. Since 2 is dividing the x, that's going to be our coefficient. So that leaves our constant as negative 3. We're going to add 3 to both sides because the opposite of negative 3 is positive 3. They're going to cancel each other out. Bring down my x divided by 2. Negative 11 plus 3 is going to be negative 8. If you don't know that, you don't understand our integer rules yet, that's okay. Make sure that you use your calculator, use your math tools available to you. Now I need to get rid of that divided by 2. So the inverse operation of divide by 2 is to multiply by 2. I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides of my equation. 2 over 1 times 1 over 2 is going to cancel each other out and leave me with x. Negative 8 times positive 2. Negative times a positive is a negative. 8 times 2 is 16, so negative 16 is my answer there. Let's move on to another example. Here we are at example G. Again, I'm going to draw my wall down from my equal sign, and I see I've got a fraction there, and I'm not a big fan of fractions, but hopefully I can work around it using my inverse operations. So let's start by moving the constant. I can see the constant is the 3. So the opposite of plus 3 is minus 3. So I'm going to subtract 3 on both sides of my equation. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other to make sure my equation remains balanced. They're going to cancel. Bring down my 2/5 x. Negative 3 minus 3 is going to be negative 6. Now, I've got to get rid of this fraction, so I need to be doing the inverse operation. So I have to think of what the inverse is of 2 over 5. And the inverse to 2 over 5 is 5 over 2. So my inverse operation of my fraction is going to be the reciprocal of 5 over 2, in this case, to 2 over 5. But I need to multiply that on both sides of my equation. These are all going to cancel out to give me 1, leaving me with just 1x. And now I need to do negative 6 times 5 over 2. There's two ways to do this. I could type the fraction in the calculator first. 5 divided by 2 times negative 6. That will give me the right answer as long as I put the fraction in the calculator first. However, if I don't want to put the fraction in the calculator first and I want to multiply the fraction out, I can do that. Negative 6 is the same as negative 6 over 1. Now I can cross simplify. 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into negative 6 3 times. Negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. 1 times 1 is 1, or x equals negative 15. Again, if you wanted to type it in your calculator, that would work, but multiplying fractions also works. You also don't have to cross simplify. You could take negative 6 times 5, get negative 30. 1 times 2 is 2, and then do negative 30 divided by 2 to give you negative 15. So there are lots of options on how to solve this problem. You can use your calculator. You can multiply fractions with cross simplification ahead of time. You can multiply your fractions and then reduce at the end. Any of those ways will work. Let's take a look at one final example. Here we are at example H. So again, a final example, I'm going to go ahead and draw my wall down from my equal sign. I've given figure out what my constant is. It looks like it's going to be the 10 because that is not near the variable. So I'm going to subtract 10 on both sides. 10 minus 10 is 0. Make sure that I bring down my negative sign. So negative 2/3 m is equal to 40 minus 10 is going to be 30. Now I've got to get rid of that fraction. As we just talked about, the inverse operation of a fraction is its reciprocal. So negative 2 over 3 needs to be multiplied by negative 3 over 2. Again, don't forget that negative sign because we want to get rid of both the fraction and the negative. We want m to be just by itself. We're going to multiply by negative 3 over 2 on the other side of the equation as well. These are all going to cancel out to give me just m. Then again, I can use my calculator. Negative 3 divided by 2 times 30. And if I do that, I should get negative 45. Now, again, I could multiply my fractions if I wanted to. I got 30 over 1. Then I can cross simplify. 45, 2 goes into 2 one time. 2 goes into 30 15 times. 15 times negative 3 is negative 45 over 1, or negative 45. So both methods work. M is equal to negative 45 is our final answer. Now let's take a look at a couple more practice problems. Here we are at practice number 3 and 4. I want you to try these on your own, do the best that you can. I want you to pause the video now, then press play again to see if you are right. How did you do? Did you get negative 20 for both of them? Hopefully you did. If not, go back and take a look through my work to where you may have made your mistake and fix your paper so that it looks like mine. That brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.